let's talk about negotiations, because that's where this is the biggest problem, I would say. Japan, they don't negotiate in Japan.
So that's what I experienced.
Yeah,
too.
yeah.
It was like, can we like reduce like a little bit? You know, it was the person wanted to sell like it's an old property, it needs renovation. Maybe we can get the price down. No.
Okay. I will say there are exceptions, right? First off is if you're in Osaka, but you just got unlucky with your property, I will say. In Tokyo, if you're going to negotiate, it's probably going to be maximum 5% off of asking, right? So Japanese sellers, generally speaking, there are exceptions to this, of course, will usually put their property up at more or less market value, like fair market value, right? And that's why they don't like going down that much. And then also when you're talking about like lowballing, for instance, which is a very common thing where I'm from. I don't know how it is in your neck of the woods.
Not sure.
No,
but
because you never bought a house over there. But yeah, it's a very common thing where I'm from. You go 20% lower or something like that. They're just gonna throw out your offer, period, and a lot of the times not talk to you again over here if you try to.
Because they deem it as you're not taking this seriously.
Yeah, I mean, they deem it almost as an insult a lot of the times, you know. And like I've had people that refuse to take my advice and go way lower than I said they should, and then literally this is exactly what happened. Like the seller just threw it out and didn't want to deal with the guy, right? Even though it was a cash buyer, by the way.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's one thing. So when you are negotiating for price in Japan, if you're going to do it, just make sure that you give them the maximum that you're willing to spend on the first ask, right? Because it's not negotiation, it's an offer of I will pay this much, right? It's not, hey, let's meet in the middle. It's I want to pay this much, or I can pay this much, right? So yeah, that's how it works over here.
Do you notice a lot of differences? So you work mostly in Tokyo, but for your Tokyo portfolio YouTube channel, you occasionally visit properties in Kyoto and Nara, maybe soon other places in Japan. Does it work differently if you are in Okayama, Hiroshima, and Sapporo, or is everything more or less the same across Japan?
It is pretty different because Tokyo just has a lot of demand, right? There is a lot of supply, don't get me wrong, but if you're in the parts of Tokyo that my clientele tends to want to buy in, so in Minato, Shibuya, you know, those boards of Tokyo, sometimes Setagaya, Meguro, those kind of areas too. Unless you're kind of on the outskirts of those areas, there's going to be other people that are probably interested in the same property. So it's going to be a little hard to negotiate. Versus in Osaka, for instance, where you already have a kind of bargaining culture to begin with.
Yeah, Osaka is more like a merchant.
It's a merchant
city.
Exactly. A very mercantile city. I don't know if that's the right word. But anything, yeah, so Osaka just has that vibe to it in general. But if you go outside of the major cities, if you go even outside of Hiroshima, you go to Okayama, you go to, I don't know, Tottori or something like that. At that point, people are listing their places and not always expecting to be selling it within the first or second year sometimes. So if they get an offer, there's a good chance that they'd be like, okay, you know, as long as it's not like way, way below, you know, in which case it would be insulting again, right? A lot of the times they'll be like, okay, you know what, this is fair. Yeah, you know, because you've probably seen the news reports on major outlets and even like sometimes you'll see real estate brokerage firms put out these kind of releases that say that Japanese property values have been going down over time. That is true, right? But not so much in the cities, and especially not in Tokyo and even Osaka, to be honest. So people outside of these cities are pretty, yeah, they're usually a bit more okay, willing to let go with a
person-to-person negotiation. I want to buy your property. Okay, let's talk about it, as opposed to the very maybe a structured way of dealing.
Oh no, it's usually structured too. It is definitely.
I'm not saying it's not structured, but it's more a willingness to engage in a discussion. Whereas, for example, in my case, I never met the owner.
Oh, that's the norm. That is still the norm, even outside. You know, because in Japan, it is not just real estate, but in most business over here, there's a term called madoguchi, right? So it means like the window, right? Yeah. So like you have like the teller at a bank, for instance. That's a madoguchi, right? You're dealing with that one person. And that is not just real estate, that's for anything, any kind of customer service related thing or sales related thing. You're gonna have your person in charge and you're only gonna be dealing with that person. And if you were to like go around that person, that is a huge faux pas, right? To the point that the whole deal could like be shot up in the air because of that, right? And especially when it comes to real estate transactions, there's almost always going to be 2 agents or more per transaction. You're going to have the seller's agent and the buyer's agent. And they will talk to each other. The seller will never talk to the buyer's agent. The buyer will never talk to the seller's agent in most cases. And yeah, that's just how it works. And that's not just Tokyo, that's pretty much anywhere. Unless it's like, oh yeah, he's my neighbor, I know the guy, you know, he came over for drinks one time and we discussed the price and yeah, we'll do it for 30% off. You know, like that does happen, but that's very uncommon.